Today we are going to explain how and why Lilith and Namaah could possibly survive and how the fight could continue with Magna and Zora taking the final hit. Black Clover Chapter 290 review and Black Clover Chapter 291 prediction here on Unami. For me personally, the chapter was a bit disappointing because the fight seemed a bit rushed, which I honestly see no reason for why Tabata did this. While we don't have any confirmation yet that Lilith and Namaah are truly defeated, it really does look like this could be the end. More on why Lilith and Namaah could still be alive in a moment. Usually in Black Clover, the fights against such strong opponents are never handled by a single character. This completely contradicts the principle of teamwork and strategy that has so far been the core of every single major fight. There are always several people against a very strong opponent. It must be mentioned, however, that Asta alone without Nacht's help most likely could not defeat the Devil siblings, since with his help, Asta could have the final hit. See this however you want, it was basically teamwork, and so it somehow does fit into the typical Black Clover fighting concept. What really bothers me, however, is the pointless introduction of Magna and Zora in the last panel of the last chapter, which gave all of us hope that they could contribute to the fight against the Devil fusion. But unfortunately, we couldn't see Magna and Zora in action. They both disappeared from the screen again and let Asta do all the work, instead of giving them the well-deserved highlight introduction that we have been waiting for over a year. Now, don't get me wrong, the chapter wasn't bad, but something needs to happen in the next chapter so that the sudden appearance of Magna and Zora isn't wasted. Nevertheless, of course, the action in this chapter was just phenomenal. What I want to see to make this chapter really amazing is that Lilith and Namaah will somehow survive, possibly for the same reason Zagreus survived so many times before Asta finally defeated him by hitting the core of his body, which in the case of Zagreus was his heart. So when we consider that the same can be applied to Lilith and Namaah in their Devil Fusion form, they may even be able to regenerate if they also have such an ability. Perhaps the roots of the Clippeth could help Lilith and Namaah to regenerate. This thought came to me because I noticed that the roots help Lilith and Namaah use so much mana for their attack, so maybe the tree will be able to help the devil in other ways as well, such as regeneration. The roots are definitely a great secret and a powerful weapon for the devils. In one of the chapters of the Spade War arc, we found out that the devil said the mana tastes good in this world. And we know that the roots are absorbing natural mana and most likely at some point, if not already, the mana inside every living beings and magic creations. We can assume as the roots grow in size, they can absorb more and faster mana, until they reach a point where noticeable environmental changes occur. For example, that the plants begin to die. We don't know exactly how much absorbing natural mana affects the other elements in nature, water, fire and air. But in relation to earth, plants will suffer a lot. Obviously, Mana Zone and Mana Method users, the spirit magic and the normal magic itself get weaker and weaker over time. While the high-ranking devils on the other hand are supported with the absorbed mana in addition to their already gigantic initial mana capacity. Of course, this fight should only serve to introduce Asta's new form and show us how much stronger Asta and Liebe have become compared to the fight against Nacht a few months ago. And it was for the purpose of introducing us to the Devil Unit mod Black Guardian time limit as well as the new anti-magic techniques. But we have already seen all this when Asta was fighting the demon god and literally defeated the demon in a matter of seconds. Of course, you can't compare both fights, as fighting Lilith and Namaah required more use of anti-magic techniques, so it is understandable. However, this does not explain why Magna and Zora were introduced so suddenly and unspectacular. This is really the only thing that bothers me a lot. So if nothing happens, we just won't have the wow effect from Magna and Zora that we have all been waiting for over a year. For those who are interested in our content, we will be posting a video on Sunday talking about the next clip of Devil. Subscribe if you don't want to miss this video and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos, as YouTube won't notify you if you haven't turned on this beautiful notification bell. And let me know in the comments, do you believe Lilith and Namaah are done for good or will they have a comeback? It's crazy, but you guys did it again. Yesterday we had only 13,000 subscribers and now we are already 600 more. Thank you so much. At this rate, we will hit 60,000 at the end of the year, which is totally crazy.
What exactly could be the reason behind the introduction of Magna and Zora in middle of such a big fight? As we saw in the last chapter, they both are close to Asta since they could see Asta's attack. I mean, it wasn't really hard to miss, but I think you get my point. So they either just come up to him and say, "Oh man, you gotten so strong." That would be the most lame and boring time skip introduction ever. The best solution for this is to make the readers first believe that everything is going smoothly. But in fact, Lilith and Namaah will have one last comeback, and Magna will have to step in together with Zora and surprise Asta and Nacht by showing how incredibly strong they have become and defeat Lilith and Namaah with a combination attack. Of course, I know Magna and Zora are far from being strong enough to defeat the devil, but we are talking about one time only situation here, as Lilith and Namaah are already almost done and might pull a last attack that Magna and Zora will be able to reflect with a trap combination spell. This is typical of Tabata's writing, as we saw with Ladros before, as Asta went into his devil mode for the first time against them, and Zagreed after being hit by Lick's ultimate spell, also against Vanica and Dante, as well as all the 3 Dark Triad members in the Spade War arc. However, if this really was the end of Nacht and Namaah, we can assume that the next gate to the underworld will be open soon, very soon. And the reason we saw Magna and Zora must have another explanation. For those of you who remember our theory about Magna, we said that Luck will fight one of the devils and will have trouble to win, so that Magna can show up and save Luck, which will prove to Luck that Magna indeed is a worthy rival. This could come true when the next gate opens in the next few chapters and the next high-ranking devil appears. There was definitely tension between Luck and Magna has always struggled to keep up with Luck, and Luck was shortly losing hope that Magna could catch up to him. We don't really know how long Asta will have to stay in this human form before he can unite with Liebe again, but it doesn't really seem to be a long time. Our guess is about an hour or 2 until he can use the Devil Unite mode Black Guardian again. So, if the next gate is opened immediately because Morris may have noticed that they need reinforcements, everyone is in danger unless they all fight together against the high-ranking devil of the second gate. Who the high-ranking devil of the second gate will be covered in the video on Sunday, so make sure you subscribe with the notification bell turned on so that you don't miss that video. If everyone works together against the high-ranking devil of the second gate, the possibility that they will defeat the devil is very great. But things are not that simple. With every gate, the normal devils get stronger. If Luck, for example, easily defeated the mid-ranking devils of the first layer of the underworld, that doesn't mean that he is still able to defeat the devil of the second layer so easily. If we compare the extreme power difference between the Dark Triad and Lilith and Namaah, we can assume that the second gate is already almost impossible to handle. Of course, if they fail to defeat the high-ranking devil of the second gate before the third gate is opened, the situation will get even more worse, because then the high-ranking devils can work together and everything becomes very problematic. If this worst-case scenario does occur, it will look very bad for humanity, unless more reinforcements will join the war. As we predicted many months ago, we expect the Underwater Temple, the remaining Knights of the Diamond Kingdom, and the Witches of the Witch Forest to join the war, as Finral may have informed them using his spatial magic. Finral was never in the Diamond Kingdom, so he could not have informed Mars. But it looks like the Diamond Kingdom is aware of the situation in the Spade Kingdom and will have their own interests to join the war. What the Witch Queen will do is not a question. We assume that she could be in contact with the devil, which of course does not mean that she is on the side of the devils. So this is one thing that we absolutely need to keep an eye on. So that's it for today, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed our video, and if you did, don't forget to smash the like button and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our future videos. See you guys in the next video. Yami out.